When you say nation, you talk about land. Our land is Africa. That's undeniable. This land is not our land.
That what Frantz Fanon's theory, psychological theory, is that we're in a post-colonial psychology. And what he calls that is an auto-destructional stage, which is the oppressor will oppress for so long that the oppressed no longer have to be physically oppressed. They do it to themselves automatically.
I'm black. Do you hear me, man? Do you understand? I am black. I'm a nigga. You understand me? I was born black, I live black, and I'm gonna die probably because I'm black. Because some cracker that knows I'm black better than you, nigga, is probably gonna put a bullet in the back of my head.
Hey man, it's like this, man. It's like, you know, it's like it's revolution time, man. There's no questions asked. Revolution is here. You know what I'm saying? We the youth, we the young. It's time for us to break loose, you know? We don't have no freedom, no rights, man. We slaves right now. Everybody's still a slave. That's what they told us today. In other words, you still a slave. No matter how much money you got, you still ain't shit. So, you know, it's on, just like that. Just like
are really ready and willing to pay the price that is necessary for freedom. Our people will always be walking around here second-class citizens, or what you call 20th century slaves.
What price are you talking about, sir?
The price of freedom is death.
What's the figure?
I mean, what are you in this for? You want power, you want revenge, you know? What is it?
It's simple, Willie. I just want to be free.
Uhuru, welcome to Uhuru Mindset. It's Ikemba, Feist, and Christine. This is Revolutionary Conversations for Revolutionary Times. This show is brought to you by the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, or MPDM for short. I want to acknowledge our president, Columbayi Antoinette, who is currently running for alderperson of Ward 3 in St. Louis, as well as the founder and the leader of the Uhuru Movement, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Uhuru means freedom in Swahili and is the conceptual basis for which we organize and develop African or Black controlled institutions, in addition to resisting the colonial system that has been designed to subject us to a perpetual state of subjugation. Uhuru Mindset is meant to raise our consciousness to our identity and function of colonialism in our daily lives, in ways that we can transcend systems of oppression and exploitation. Our show will consist of interviews with ordinary people from our community to discuss past and present ways colonialism affected them and their community and what we can do to transform our conditions. Colonialism is a system in which one group directly or indirectly controls the politics and economics of another group. This has traditionally been done by settlement from the colonizer. Today, colonialism can be exercised through indirect rule or neo-colonialism. We plan to bring dynamic and stimulating discussions to our viewers and represent an alternative to culture vultures and opportunists who have no intention on bringing practical solutions to our problems. This show is for the African or Black working class and poor. This show represents your interests and will tell your story. Okay, let's do it. So Uhuru, welcome to another episode of Uhuru Mindset, episode number 15. And we're about to go into season 2 in a minute. So, you know, stay tuned for that. But my name is Ikemba. I'm here with Feist, Empress Livewire. We are your team. We are members of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. And Uhuru means freedom. First, I want to acknowledge our leadership, President Columbayi Antoinette, the international president of MPDM. I want to also acknowledge Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who's the chairman of the Uhuru Movement and the African People's Socialist Party and the leader of the African Revolution. So we're here at Uhuru Mindset, and we created Uhuru Mindset out of the theory of African internationalism, which was given to us, this theory which was developed by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And we use this theory to build this particular program to tackle colonialism. Uhuru Mindset is a means or instrument that we use to try to decolonize the minds of African people in the United States and all around the world where African people reside. So we understand that African people have been colonized. We have been enslaved, kidnapped from Africa up to the shores of America, enslaved, in chains. And through this process of enslavement, we understand that we have been indoctrinated. And even after the end of the Civil War, when African people were, quote unquote, freed by the Emancipation proclamation, even during this time, African people were not allowed to determine the destiny of African people. They weren't allowed to determine the destiny of themselves. So we weren't a self-determined people. And as a result of that, our schools, all the institutions that were in our community were under the power of the colonizer, under the power of Europeans. And one of those things that the European has been able to use to keep us colonized is the media and the education system. So he's been able to put the chains, even though the physical chains have been off, he's been able to put these the mental chains on African people. And so Uhuru mindset has been created to combat that. And so that's why we developed this show. And so we understand that we are African people here in the United States. And as an African people, we represent a nation. We're part of a dispersed nation, as the chairman talks about. And one of the important things that we want to do is get African people to understand that we are a part of a dispersed nation and develop a particular way of thinking in order to overturn the contradictions that exist within the United States of America. And so when you think about it, African people in the United States are categorized as a minority by the colonizer. And so why does he categorize African people as a minority? Because he looks at us, even the colonizer looks at us as a separate nation. And so the only problem is that we haven't begun to develop that collective consciousness. And so this is what we want to do with a Uhuru mindset. We want to combat all the media that's out there that's being used to continue to dumb down African people, to continue to perpetuate our colonial conditions here in the United States of America. And so we want to, all African people, spread the word about Uhuru mindset, continue to tune in. I want you to follow Uhuru mindset channel on YouTube as well, because we have to develop this program, and we have to put, this program has to be in every household. So with that being said, I want to again thank everybody that is here, that is tuning in, and we're going to do what we always do, go to a musical selection, and then we're going to come back and have a powerful conversation. So Uhuru. Yeah, I was supposed to be on point with this. Here we go. We got it, though. And we're going to do something fire. Hey, Uhuru, everybody right there on the IG. Did it.
Look at the status of the crowd, you niggas know. Look at the status of the crowd, you niggas know.
Kick your games, with your flow. Can't fuck with this top dog shit though. Kick your games, with your flow. Can't fuck with this top dog shit though. Kick your games, with your flow. Can't fuck with this top dog shit though. Kick your games, with your flow. Can't fuck with this top dog shit though.
Wish I could see Otto Selassie. Maybe my sovereignty will still be mine. If all the gangs in the world unify, we stand a chance against the military tonight. I said we stand a chance against the military tonight. I said we stand a chance against the military tonight.
Babylon, Babylon. Out my window all I see is Babylon. On the news all I see is Babylon. And all niggas do is just Babylon. Money and hoes, more money and hoes. If I sold dope I'd have plenty of flows. I was from the projects like J-Rock. I would've more than likely slang rocks. All my life I done been around Crips and Bloods, Pimps and Thugs, just to name a few. I do drugs, mama say it's in my blood, but she don't know what the fuck I've been through. To creep through the back door, the typical black boy in the good old USA. Before I push rhymes like Wade, I used to want to play for the NBA. Fuck I'm doing talking about pineal gland. Ancient ways of Sumerians. Ain't nothing wrong with a righteous man. That's why I had to write this, man. For my niggas on the corner selling water to somebody's daughter, fluctuating prices, man. I ain't got no gavel. I ain't trying to fight nobody battle. I just wanna be free. I ain't trying to be nobody chattel. Nobody chattel. Nobody chattel. Nobody chattel. Nobody chattel.
Wish I could see out of Selassie. Maybe my sovereignty will still be mine. If all the gangs in the world unify, we stand a chance against the military tonight. I said we stand a chance against the military tonight.
Right. I know. We could have went in, but you know we about to go in anyway. So
I like that. Was that Janae Aiko?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. I was like, oh my gosh. I love that. Well, Uhuru, everyone, Uhuru comrades, Uhuru, everyone watching. Welcome again. Welcome to Uhuru Mindset. Tonight's title is Colonial Violence from Breonna Taylor and George Floyd to Ronald Greene. It's a lot and it's heavy. So we want to talk about I'm sorry, the baby. She wants to talk about it too.
yeah, she upset, right?
Yeah, she's definitely upset. She has a lot to say. So I just want to start the conversation talking about the relationship between the colonizer and the colonized, and how we already know that we will not get justice in that type of in this relationship. We will not get justice from reform. We will get justice from revolution. But I do want to ask my comrades, in light of everything that's going on and a bill that was mentioned earlier, I want to ask my comrades, what are their thoughts on defunding the police versus Black community control of the police? What are some key differences that the people that don't know about these different how can I say, campaigns? What would you say to the people who don't know about these different campaigns or bills? What would you say are the key differences and why we need Black community control of the police?
Well, Uhuru comrades, I want to say, defunding the police. I think former white power and blackface chief Barack Obama mentioned something about a snappy slogan. He said it's a snappy slogan, and even people who were fans of Barack Obama was upset about his criticism of the term and the things of that nature. But we have to remember that particular climate at that time. Even though there was a pandemic and people were scared to death of the colonial virus, COVID-19, people still came out and were protesting in great numbers consistently. And you've seen this call being made, and so other, the state has a way of co-opting these terms, but we're clear inside our movement that we want Black community control of the police. We don't just merely want to give them less money to buy weapons to kill us with. That's not what we're saying by Black community control of the police. We're talking about being able to fire the police, set the policy that they utilize, and put forward a program of economic development versus of a policy of police containment, which is what the police do in the Black community. So defunding the police, well, you want to make sure that they don't, they can't shoot you with a 45 caliber. They'll get a 38 caliber or maybe a 25 or something. Maybe that's, reasonable to some people. To us, we're saying we want to be able to control what happens with people who are in our streets with firearms and military weapon grade weapons. And we want to be able to say what happens with these people and dictate how they operate, not just, giving them an ability to afford cheaper weapons, and, that's the most simplest take you can get
Right.
between the two.
And something you just said, and I must shout out the Burning Spear article that was recommended and that I read. And, it talks about how, like, we'll get like these token things or these token bills, and it sacrifices the long-term goal for a short-term one or for one that we didn't even ask for. Like, if we ask for Black Power, they give us Black Lives Matter in paint by the White House. We ask for Black Power, we get someone twerking by the White House. We ask for Black Power, we get Kamala Harris and Barack Obama, who can be explained as a Trojan horse for white supremacy. So it just reminds me of that. And it's been going on for so long. We ask for what we want, and then they give us something that we didn't ask for and label, and like you said, phrase it in a way where it seems like it's something positive when it's actually extremely detrimental to our community.
I think so. I wanted to say is that
when talking about colonialism or the attack that's being waged on black people every single day by the colonial settlers, whether they're in uniform by the police, whether they wear uniforms like the police, or they're not wearing a uniform, like the father and son team and friend that murdered Ahmaud Arbery. These are regular average white citizens, just like you would see average white citizens who committed lynchings against African people. I think coming up pretty soon, around the time this will be aired, the same week they're showing a special on the Tulsa, Oklahoma riots. I think it's the 100-year anniversary or something like that. And that whole particular town, thriving African town, was wiped out by white mobs. Who organized themselves with the support of the state to wipe out, commit genocide against the whole African community. And I wanted to be clear that we do not unite with the idea that racism is the problem. The idea inside white people's heads is the problem. We don't want to unite with the idea that this white supremacy, because white people are not all powerful. They think they're white supremacists because that's how you're supposed to function as a white supremacist. You're supposed to believe that you're all powerful. That gives you the ability to do what you actually go out there and do: physical violence, colonial violence. We're saying white people are not all powerful, but white people are all organized in the form of the state. The state is the organization of coercion and repression. It's the state that is the power, not everyday average white people, because you don't see everyday average white people just coming into the black community. When they come into the black community, they have, like I said, military grade weapons. Just a few weeks ago, they had a drone dog or some kind of robotic mechanical machine that they were using to go into the black community. So if they were primarily all powerful, like they like to call themselves and like to think, it's ability of the state to focus on quote unquote messiah, or use a COINTEL program, or use tactics and strategies to destroy any kind of organization among African people, shows how weak this system of coercion and oppression is. So it's on its deathbed. It knows that. And that's where you see these bills being put together. This is where you see the attack on the African community intensifying. There will be more murders, there will be more attacks, and that's why we say there's got to be a to-what end. If we have a problem when we're saying defunding the police is the problem, if that idea isn't clear and concisive, the solution never be brought about, and we'll be just marching around in circles for another generation. And we're saying that in our organization, we have to have a to-what end, and we have to be able to defend ourselves against the state. There's no working around the state. There's no breaking off of doing some kind of splinter kind of situation when it comes to the state. We have to build doing and contending power, and that's where the call for reparations comes into this demand as well, comrades. And I'm sure we can get into that later, but economics of this concentrated politics, and the politically what's been happening in the black community is we've been colonized to a degree where everything that's happening in our communities benefits the white ruling class, and all the apparatuses between the courts, the lawyers, the judges, the police, they all work in the interest of the state. And it's high time that African people understand the role of the state and our relationship to it.
Ooh, Ashe.
Yeah, I say. Yeah, I mean, I completely, I agree with that. Unite with that 100%. I think it's important too, like for people to like really develop a mindset that the institutions that have been erected that we're dealing with are not for us. Like there's no reforming it. There's no reconciling colonialism with the experience of African people. So we have to like really understand that, first of all. And so like the mindset that we need to have is a revolutionary mindset. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that, okay, I'm gonna pick up this AK, and go on some fatigue or a leather jacket and go out there and just ready to start going to war with the police. But it is a particular mindset that you do have to have so that you understand that you are at war, and how to maneuver and always think strategically, knowing that the people that we're working against, or that we're struggling or fighting against, are creating systems and institutions that is not in the interests of African people. And also just like understanding that we are African people too is very important. That has to be a mindset, because then it's like when you get into this thing, like, I'm an American, I'm African American, and I know there's a lot of people who, who want to take on that label, and it's not no, slight against them, but I think, like, if you don't, if you have that mentality that that you're a part of the system, then you're always going to be working to reform it. You're going to be looking at voting, more jobs, like reformist
Sensitivity
things.
training,
Those are going to be the solutions. The solutions is
body
going to be like,
cameras.
we need more jobs. We need more, more funding for the police or for the schools. And even the call for defunding the police is, I think Feist talked about to what ends. What they want to do is take those resources and divert it into other institutions that are not really revolutionary in character, and so, or they don't function that way. And so when we talk about defunding the police, we're talking about reparations. We're talking about resources, the ability for us to control the security of our communities, because those resources are ours anyway. It look like Feist is like itching to say something.
You mentioned reform. That
Yeah.
what Feist you wanted to go? You want to take it first?
No,
Because I remember.
Because what Prez just said, about the laws that they pass and the way that the state moves, like, a lot of times our people will get very compartmentalized in the attacks that's happening to us, because that's what colonialism does. It separates and divides us. So we're looking at an attack that's happening someplace else in the world, or even in the country, as, it's different there, or there's, even between like the North and South, like there was this idea that in the North, it's easier for African people to function, and then in the South, the South is where all the racist crackers live, where they lynch African people left and right. But if you look in like how they break up the North and South, you could pretty much lay that over the whole North and South with the red state, blue state kind of dichotomy, right? So as opposed to it being the North versus the South, now you got the red state versus the blue states, right? They're supposed to show some kind of division within America. That there's a party that's Democratic and a party that's Republican, and there's the opposition, right? But when it comes down to it, this George Floyd bill that I think we have to really look into even a little closer. They're both voting on these particular bills, and you can't tell who's Democrat or who's Republican, because at the end of the day, both particular parties function as an instrument of the white ruling class. They function as a role for the state, and it seems, I'm gonna find the exact areas, but the George Floyd bill actually gives more money to the state, to the police, to murder African people. Those resources are not used to fix any of these problems. And even furthermore, when these police commit these acts of murder or colonial violence in the African community, or even a brown community like you've seen in Chicago with Adam Toledo, it's a situation where those funds and resources don't even come from the state itself. It comes from the people through the forms of taxpayers' dollars, there's one thing I would say. I haven't looked through all the documentation, but when there's some kind of lawsuits like that, it should come directly from their pension. You know what I mean? It should come directly from out of their pocket, and that's just the least of it. You know what I mean? But it has to, again, we can't be disillusioned with our role inside this world. There was this brother by the name of Kwame Brown that's been talked about a lot this week. If you follow social media squabbles going on, and at first it started off with infighting between African people. I even heard Uncle Tom O'Coon come up a couple of times, right? and I'm looking at both sides, and then the side that I was agreeing with started talking about how he wasn't an African. He's an American. His people built this country as if we had a choice in building this country, like African people, like they
love to use that, Conrad.
Yeah, they was at the ship and
We
they said,
built
hey,
this
you
country.
want to come and help build America, African people? Like there was a box that they checked off and then they just walked in. You know what I'm saying? Nothing like that happened. We didn't choose to come to America, to build America. That wasn't a choice. You know what I'm saying? And then he got into a couple more other colonial mindset statements, you know, which it should be a poster child for a colonial mindset. You know what I mean? Which is not to disparage the brother, disparage anybody with that particular colonial mindset. But that mindset, how does that benefit African people? You're calling yourself American and you can't get a crime bill passed for your people. You know what I mean? But the Asian people, they got their crime bill passed in a matter of months. You know what I mean? And that's a real basic way of looking at it. It's a real subjective way of looking at it. But it's got to come to a point where African people realize, look, the truth and reality of this situation, we living on stolen land, you know.
Absolutely.
Even with the mass shootings that continue to happen around this country, to almost to the point where people are becoming desensitized, you know. I don't know if you remember, comrades. We kind of older, but there used to be a whole genre of Hollywood theater called westerns. They're not that big these days, but all westerns did was glamorize colonial settlerism. You know what I mean? That's all it did, is glorify colonial settlers, and glorify taking indigenous people's lands, you know, and romanticize all of that, you know. And that you used to find African people that was into that media in that particular generation have a certain romanticized view about America. As no matter how bad and terrible things has been for African people here, we still buy into the colonial mindset that this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. You know, it's inside the national anthem, the pledges, and all these different things that are that used to indoctrinate us, which is indoctrination, just a nice way to say colonize. You know what I mean? And when you colonize the person, you're doing that so that you can benefit and exploit from those group of people or that person economically and politically. Colonialism isn't done to benefit the colonized person. You know, just like African people wasn't going to benefit from letting themselves be kidnapped and brought to America.
And you touched on like every single thing that I was gonna say. You took it right out of my mind. The word, you got it, Conrad. You touched on everything. The reform. You literally touched on everything. But so now it's time for a word from our sponsors. Do you need your daily dose of revolutionary news? Tune. You don't want me to go to a word from our sponsors?
Wow, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I usually have to be like, hold on, we're gonna go.
You know, all you gotta do is know that you could trust your people, that that you organize it with, and now we got it. We got you.
This is good work right here. We working, people. Shout out to our audience here that's with us. I'm looking forward to hear what the people have to say. Let me step out of your way, Empress. Do your thing,
okay.
You got it.
And now it's time for a word from our sponsors. I am Empress Livewire, and I have some announcements. I need you to subscribe to and get your daily dose of revolutionary news. I need you to subscribe to the Burning Spear newspaper, and you can do that by visiting burningspearmarketplace.com. Again, that's burningspearmarketplace.com. That link will be in the description box and in the chat. Again, that is the Burning Spear newspaper. That is our revolutionary newspaper. We've been talking some talking points tonight. Very informative, powerful, and that is from the Burning Spear newspaper. The One Africa, One Nation Marketplace is taking place again. It's happening June 12th. That's Saturday in Philly, Clark Park on 43rd and Chester. Again, that's Clark Park on 43rd and Chester in Philly, and that's taking place from 9 to 5 in the city of brotherly love. We have a Juneteenth rally. It will be in Brooklyn, New York, on Pickens and Rockaway Avenue, and that will be on June 19th in honor of Juneteenth. We will be organizing, putting the line out, giving away clothing, food, and books to the community. So make sure you come out and join us. That will be an amazing, amazing event. We come out and we just have so much fun, just sharing energy with everybody. Right after that, you can head right over to Lincoln Terrace Park. It's also in Brooklyn, New York, for our Juneteenth Family Reunion Barbecue. Yep, you heard me right. Juneteenth Family Reunion Barbecue. AIU, Abundance Unujama, will be hosting a Juneteenth Family Day /barbecue from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. There will be vegan options and plant-based options as well. Again, that's in Brooklyn, New York from 1 to 7, Lincoln Terrace Park. That will be a family affair / family reunion. Do you have questions about the world and the Black people's place in it? Tune in to Omali Taught Me every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube Live. Our chairman, Omali Yeshitela, talks about putting theory to practice, how to organize, and bring change to the world from an African internationalist perspective. Again, that's Omali Taught Me every Sunday morning, 8 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube Live. If you would like to become a member of the NPDM, join us, www.npdm.org. Again, please visit www.npdm.org. There is so much that our organization has going on. I will be doing announcements for an hour if we talked about everything that we're organizing. There's multiple committees, multiple work going on. We don't just sit here on Fridays and talk about it. We are about it. We have schools to educate our own children. We are feeding our communities. We organize with our communities. We are doing so many things to put theory to practice and build a life towards self-determination and really, really be about what we're talking about. So again, if you would like to be a part of our organization or what we're saying resonates with you, visit npdm.org. Also, if you care to donate, we have Cash App and PayPal. You can donate by hitting the Cash App or the PayPal, and then you would enter nyc.npdum.org. That's nyc.inpdum.org. Uhuru. So this conversation, and Uhuru, welcome, Whisper.
Oh, I have another announcement, Conrad.
Oh, okay. Yes, you got one more thing to add.
All right. So we're an international organization, so we have things going on all around the world, from Occupy to Tanzania, which is known by its colonial name, South Africa, to San Diego, to the Bahamas, to St. Louis. So in St. Louis, there is the Musa Bantu Freedom Expression open mic that's going on this Sunday. So May 30th from 7 to 9 p.m. It's virtual. It's also going to be in person for those people who are in St. Louis. But we can participate virtually. If you want to perform, you can do that, or you just want to view, you can do that. And it's going to be airing from the NPDM page. So make sure you follow NPDM on Facebook, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement on Facebook, to be a part of that. So yeah, that's my announcement. So back to you, Empress.
Asante Sana for that announcement. So for anyone who just joined us, the title is Colonial Violence from Breonna Taylor and George Floyd to Ronald Greene. We have been talking about defund the police versus Black power control of the police. So quickly, I just want to read this little summary that I got from the Burning Spear newspaper article, which is very informative when it comes to this topic. Because, like, I know what Black community control of the police is. Like, you hear the title and you think it's self-explanatory, but when you ask to, like, articulate, wait, what does that actually mean? And what does it look like in real life? What does it practically mean? You know, you really have to sit down and think about it and analyze it. And the Burning Spear newspaper has literally done all the work for us. We just have to not be afraid to read. And it is like, it's so informative. So Black community control of the police gives our people the opportunity to require that police functions include solving the fundamental problems of our colonized community. This starts with poverty, joblessness, poor and non-existent housing, healthcare, and so on. So imagine if we had the control to hire, fire, train, discipline, and control anyone who operates as a security force within our communities. That is like the fundamental basis of what Black community control of the police is. And it sounds wonderful, doesn't it? But, you know, like I said, the talking points out there is defund the police, the George Floyd, the George Floyd bill. Again, all of these tokenisms, ideas, or all of these ideas that's characterized as opportunism, where you get something you didn't ask for that sacrifices the longer goals for something that's not even beneficial to our community. So I just wanted to put that definition out there for people who don't know about Black community control the police campaign.
Hey, I want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good article too. That's that article out of the Burning Spear. Just in case, I'm not sure if you said the title, but it's defunding the police versus Black community control of the police. You can find that article online. It's a Burning Spear article, so I would say like do a Google search with that title. Or I can put the link in the chat in a minute. I can do that as well. But in this particular article, the chairman, they got a quote from the chairman where he says, "What is the state? It is a repressive organization. It is the police department. It is the army, the navy, the court system. The state emerges in human society at that juncture when it is split between those who have and those who ain't got." I think like that's a very important statement, and it's very important for us to like really understand what is being said right there, because that's our reality. Like we have to understand what is the function of the police, and it goes back to what Feist was talking about, these Westerns, and it clicked when he said that as far as like what was happening, like the police, like the police that were being set up in these towns that were being. So when we look at it, like if you look, there's a film called Appaloosa, and there's this series called Deadwood, right? And I bring those both up because I think they have good examples of a town that's being created by white settlers, colonialists, and they're creating building these towns, and people are coming to these towns looking for jobs, looking for opportunities, and it's the ruling class that's sort of just like they're at the vanguard of creating these. They're at the forefront of creating these towns and funding them. And so they're the ones who are hiring the police unit to secure and protect those towns and to defend the ruling class. And so if you look at this film Appaloosa, it's the ruling class who are being they have control of this town, and it's this like renegade guy who's coming in. He got his posse, and they're coming in doing whatever they want in the town. So they, what the ruling class does is they bring in these police who actually, well, they're not police. They bring in like a group of gunslingers, cowboys, I guess you can say. And they hire them to be the police and to protect them from these people who are, I guess, quote unquote, terrorizing them. And so we got to understand, like, I use that example to show you what's happening with the Black community, with Africans in this country. Like, this police, if there was no police, what would stop us from taking back our resources? Like, if there was no military, what would stop us from taking back our resources? And so all of the problems that we have to understand those are economic issues. Those are economic problems. You can solve a lot of the crime in our communities by giving us the resources that are needed to survive, not giving it to us because we're gonna have to take it. Nobody's gonna give us anything. But I just want us to look at things in that perspective.
You raise a really important you raise a really important point. So what would you say to those who are fearful and hesitant to talk about the abolishment of police because they feel like they have no other protection, especially within their own communities? Because there are a lot of Africans who, you know, they say, listen, the people who attack me and who I'm fearful of and who come at me are my own people. So what would you say to people who are fearful of that conversation, abolishment of police?
Look, Whisper, you going? Stop. You playing double Dutch. Whisper playing double Dutch.
Whisper, you better get in there.
Okay, so first off, I want to say, first I want to respond to what Akimba said real quick. That was awesome example of what I've been saying, because we're not looking, I know, like, from our perspective, you know, when we come from a personal aspect, you know, it's like the oppression aspect of it. But if we step outside of ourselves and we look at it as a business, there's no competition. So it's like once they hired the cowboys, now you have competition. Now, like, let's take a step back and now let's address Empress. Now you have people who are fearful. Well, what if we defund the police? What is there left? But we're not even looking at, this is the business aspect of it. And so, like, even in public housing, I pointed this out, if the police are being funded with your own dollars from your development, you can literally take also the money that they actually put into each development's like community funds to do something with. And it's like what, $1 million? You come and you create, which is being stolen from a lot of public housing because most people don't even know it's there. But you sit up here and you can literally create your own program where you train, take those cute little boys that you see in the hallways and you think are up to no good, train them, get your local security force, get them some training, and now institute them as a security. And instead of paying for police to sit up here and harass you, you can literally create your own security force and put them up in there, give them a job so that they're not displaced by this outside community and have protection. You know, that's just a thought. But that's the thing. It's not just enough to just say, oh my God, what's the alternative? Well, then you make an alternative because at the end of the day, it's just business for them. We are commerce. So
And
we have
that's
to take
self-determination. You make an alternative. You better tell them, Whisper.
you know, I mean, it's just really just about stepping outside ourselves, which is kind of hard, you know, while 3 men are sitting on top of you and another one is kicking your head in. But anyway, it's a lot of police I don't like. But it's like, but you can't let that break you. You know, you gotta step out yourself and look at it from that perspective in which the game that they're playing, and it's all a commerce game. So that would be my answer to that, Empress. We need to take responsibility and create our own institutions, our own things. And it really is just that simple. I mean, the market is wide open. How many Black security forces are there? Companies. How many, you know, well, Black one? You know what? Let me take that back. I only know of one. But how many? And it's kind of, it's brand, it's kind of new. But for all of these elder guards, like, you know, like who in security and all these people, there's like a wealth of people, men from like former days when you know, society was different and there was a more protective aspect. And we could take the knowledge from them to train the youth of now. You know, some of those martial artists, I know a few. I know a really good one who actually, that dojo used to train the NYPD, and his grandmaster used to do protection for David Dinkins. You know, all that went out the window when they changed the regulations so that they have, you know, like when Rudy Giuliani came in and they got protections and they was told to like shoot for sense of mass, and they got a certain immunity, so to speak. You know, so this is how we now all of a sudden we don't have that training anymore. And so that was a discussion that I had with my brother, who is like an 8th degree martial artist, and he brought that up when we were talking about this, you know, within ourselves. You know, because this is something that we face on a daily basis. Like right now, I was late today because, hey, in my building, they changed the door. I mean, they gave us the brand new Rikers Island door, you know, the super Rikers Island door. So, our Rikers Island. And I have to get a key, you know, because every day you have police posted up in your building. And when we have our door open for our neighbors, they close it shut. And so it's like, there's always something, okay, let me coax you into commerce. There's always a way or avenue for someone to, okay, we need to make money, so we're gonna post up in the projects right quick, you know? So there's always a way. Everything is an angle on commerce. And so that's what we have to do. We gotta look at those codes, look at the rules that they're operating under, because even when we think that there are no rules, there's something they're maneuvering. Even if they're still institute in that Virginia Black laws or that 3/5 a human or Black hex code. And this is what we got to get up on. And you know how we beat the game? Through commerce, funding ourselves, taking authority of our own dominion, and putting our money to ourselves. But that's my cue.
She said that's her cue.
The baby said,
say cut, print.
Anyone else want to take it? Well, go ahead, y'all.
Well, I want to say really quick, before you go, Fights, you know, we're going to open it up in about 10 minutes for anybody that had any questions or any comments they wanted to make. So, you know, I want to appreciate everybody that's viewing right now. Yeah, go ahead, Fights.
I wanted to read a couple of statements from our guests.
Eric Knight had a good one.
Yeah, I want I want to read what Melissa says. She said that the defund the police movement started as a radical response to these exorbitant, multi-billion-dollar police budgets and multitude of extrajudicial killings, but it had the opposite effect with nothing to back it up. It increased police budgets or fake funding, where the system just shuffled the funds around to make it seem like decreased budgets. The funding doesn't equal less brutality either. They're even more violent and vindictive now. I unite with that, Melissa. And Eric said, he said in regards to, you know, contradictions that happen in the Black community, he said we must come together and try and diffuse the situation so we don't have to call the police. You know, and I unite with that as well.
Oh, Eric, that's Doc. My bad. I didn't know who Eric Knight was. Hey, what's up, Doc? Uhuru, Doc.
What's
Uhuru,
up,
Andrea,
Doc?
and Anisha.
All right, cool.
I didn't do that on purpose. No, we
Hey.
thank you for those contributions to the conversation. Those are all amazing points. Were there more fights?
No, I didn't see any more. Those are just the last two I looked. I didn't scroll up in the chat. But
Okay.
but yeah, you know, it's just you know, like we have a very hard time understanding or even coming to grips with the idea that the police weren't created to stop crime. You know, when the police were created in the United States, the main job of the police was to catch runaway enslaved Africans and return them back to their owner. You know, I see some people like to talk about the police are here to protect property. You know, there's that particular line, but the police also protects property owners. It protects the state. The state defends itself, and it uses these other different institutions as its guard, as its security, as its functionaries to carry out what it needs to carry out for its own sustenance. You know, again, we have a parasitic relationship. You know, so yeah, I mean, you know, we really do have to come to terms with this because there's no sticking our head in the sand. This problem isn't going away. There's no elixir for this. Like, we're gonna have to struggle and organize to overturn these contradictions.
Yeah, and I want to encourage people too to look at organizations that are developing programs that are addressing police brutality and addressing just the policing of our communities in general. For one, NPDUM, our organization, we have part of our one of the campaigns that we have is Black Community Control of the Police. And so, you know, we're always looking to build a committee around that, but we need people to get involved so we can have that committee to address that issue. And then there's also the Black is Back Coalition, which is an institution that's a part of the Uhuru movement as well. And the Black is Back Coalition is a coalition of organizations that have come together, understanding that they have a common interest. So they're no longer divided by particular theories that they may hold, because there is a difference in theories with some of the organizations that are part of the coalition. But they do understand colonialism is an issue. And so they come together based off of that understanding. And so, you know, that's a coalition that if you have an organization, I would encourage you to become a member of the Black is Back Coalition. You can become a member as an individual or as an organization. And one of the committees on the Black is Back Coalition is Black Community Control of the Police, which is actually headquartered in Philadelphia. But I would encourage people to join that committee or join NPDUM so we can develop committees wherever we are. And no matter where you are, even if we don't have a branch where you are, you know, we're an international organization, so we can bring you into the fold because this is an international struggle. So I just wanted to say that. And you know, before we go into a summation, though, I just wanted to see if anybody, we can go around and see if there's any final thoughts before we go into the summation and open it up. Anybody that wants to ask a question, just raise your hand or make a comment. If you want to make a comment, you know, just raise your hand and we can bring you up. But yeah, so I just want to get some final thoughts, and then we can pass it over to Fife.
You want me to read a question from the chat, or you want us to do that after summation?
Yeah, we could do that after. Or what you think? There's something. Well, we can build on it. We can
I
build on it.
think we could do after summation because it's gonna be interesting. It's a good question. Anisha posted it.
Okay. All right.
And Doc posted a question. I'm not sure if that's a rhetorical question.
Well, let me say this then. Let me
Uhuru, Andrea, Uhuru, beautiful. Sorry, go
you
ahead.
know, Uhuru to all the family. Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. You know, we speaking that you know, African tongue. We taking it back and we developed an African mind state or Uhuru mind state. Yeah, so you know, this was titled from Breonna Taylor, George Floyd to Ronald Greene, and that was the title we decided on. You know, because we wanted to like really look. You know, it's been 1 year since George Floyd was murdered, and people were organizing. There was a vigil here in Philadelphia. There was a vigil that happened, and you know, I was listening to people speak at this visual, and it wasn't really people who organized this visual. It wasn't really people that were out there when everything went down. It was kind of like the bourgeois stepping in and saying like, okay, now we want to get at the front of this movement, get at the front of this revolution. But I bring that up just to bring up some of the things that was said, or one of the things that was said. And it was encouraging people to join the police. One of the people were encouraging people to join the police, saying, hey, you know, like you can be 20 years old, join the police force, and you can make $58,000 a year. And you know, when I heard that, for one, I'm just like, you know, we want Black community control of the police, and for two, is encouraging people to join the state just because you can get a good salary. This is the problem we have now. It's like people are not joining the police because they want to really serve the community. People are joining the police just because, hey, maybe, you know, they look at it as I can get it, you know, good salary. I don't have a certain level of education or something, because you don't need you know, what you need. I think you only have to be 18, 17 years old to join the police academy, at least in Philadelphia. So it's not like you need a college degree or anything like that. So it's almost like joining the military. How people come out of high school, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, join the military. And so I think this is a serious problem. This goes back to the mindset that our people have, where they're just like looking at the state as the solution to the problems that African people are facing, rather than looking at these institutions as the root of the problems that we have as African people. So, you know, I just want to just like leave with that last statement and just say that, you know, we have to like really start looking at the world outside of the worldview of the colonizer. There's no solution that the colonizer have that's going to solve our problems. And if we don't develop solutions from the point of view of a people who was taken from Africa or who had their land stripped away from them, then we'll continue to perpetuate the system of colonialism. But that's my final thoughts. Let's see if y'all had anything.
Oh, I wanted to point out because, you know, there was a big controversy about defunding the police. But one, how about we actually just, look at the budget? Because if we have money to throw around for like robot dogs and, you know, Terminators, then I think that is a little bit too much money thrown into weaponry. I mean, in 2008, I saw that they had other cute machines and like these crowd dispersers that when you protest is able to like heat the air around you, you know, and make you feel like you're on fire in order to disperse the crowd, and sound machines also. So it's just like we're working towards, so we're getting basically military grade equipment. So you're obviously getting too much money already, number one. Number two, police are getting paid more than teachers. And it's like, isn't that like the goal of society, if we educated the actual people, if we had more educated people or knowledgeable, because of the difference between education and knowledge, more knowledgeable people and thinkers, not just people who just follow orders or who can just follow a script, not industrial workers, then you will have less crime because you wouldn't have reactionary people or all this chaos because you'd have more enterprise. So those are two aspects of it in terms of maybe, instead of thinking of it as it being defunded, hey, um, just properly allocating the funds that are currently being disposed and introducing, right? So that's one. So basically, you're trimming the budget. On the second notion, introducing competition, private competitors. So if we started creating actual competition for the police department, you know, then they would have more an incentive to actually adhere to some of the codes of regulations that they're supposed to, and instead of operating in unity, operate in common sense and culture and just humanity. Because now you're not the only one. If you're the only vendor, if you're a monopoly, then you know what? You're gonna do what you do. But if you actually know that, guess what? People ain't rolling with police anymore. I'm not hiring an ex-police officer for my store. There's an alternative. So we have to think
Right.
about what the alternative, because it's business.
But like you said, Whisper, they're not going to adhere to any rules or do what they're supposed to do because we already, said the police are arm of the state and they're already doing what they're supposed to do, which is to contain us and not protect us. And, they're not going to educate us because like Fife said last week, and a lot of times what Betty Davis say, cats don't educate mice, they eat them. So my only final words would be, we want economic and political power, and we will have it in this lifetime, and we need revolution. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Yeah, Uhuru comrades. Thank you for tuning in to Uhuru Mindset. This Uhuru Mindset is brought to you by the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. We say Uhuru because Uhuru means freedom. It's also welcoming and a greeting that we use amongst our comrades. We believe that freedom should be on the minds of our people 24/7. Uhuru is how we say hello. Uhuru is how we say goodbye. Uhuru is how we say good night. Uhuru is how we say good morning. You understand? So I just wanted to say that real quick. I want to salute the chairman and founder of the African Revolution, the leader of the African Revolution, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who founded NPDOM and the African People's Socialist Party and leads the Hutu movement. I want to salute our international president, Colombayi and Danette in St. Louis, Missouri, doing incredible work with all the comrades down there. And I want to say, we are the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement because we are an international organization. We have organization all around the world because we are clear that we are the same one people all over the world. We are clear that the same attacks that's happening to our people in the South Bronx is the same thing that's happening to our people in Botswana, or the same thing that's happening to African people in France. Same thing that's happening to African people in Frankfurt, Germany. We're all the same people all around the world. We are attacked and terrorized and exploited because we all share a same common bond, meaning that our oppression, our colonialism is what gave rise, is what set the foundation for the entire white world. One thing that our people understand is that if you look in the white community, they have everything, all kinds of resources. And then you look in our communities right now, especially after this COVID thing, you see, stores closed down, gates, dilapidated, funding's not happening where it's supposed to be. There's all different kinds of contradictions that's happening. On top of all of that African people are dealing with on the stolen land that the colonial settlers, the European colonial settlers, stole from indigenous people in the first place. On top of all of that, every single day, African people face colonial violence. That's violence from the state in the form of the police, and sometimes violence from just everyday white folks. And a lot of people like to talk about horizontal violence, of course. They call it black on black crime. But that term black on black crime is only used to let the state off the hook because, what's very well known is that every nationality or race of people kill their own at a more alarming rate than outside of their group. And you know, in this particular, you know, program right now, comrades, is titled Colonial Violence, from Breonna Taylor and George Floyd to Ronald Greene. You know, and if I'm not mistaken, you know, I think it's been, a number of years since Ronald Greene was murdered. George Floyd, I think they're having another case because only one cop was convicted and is set to get some kind of time. And for Breonna Taylor, I don't believe that any officer faced any kind of consequences for her murder. As a matter of fact, what happened in Breonna Taylor's case, her partner at the time, for defending them, he was charged for murder. He was, you know, brought up on charges and taken to jail. Nobody else went to jail for murder of Breonna Taylor. And these situations that we're talking about, comrades and supporters, is that, you know, one thing that is clear in terms of getting justice for when African people are hurt in the United States, we don't get it. Inside of our communities, you have the police, a functioning military occupying army that functions the same way that it does in Pakistan, the same way it functions in Afghanistan, the same way the police functions inside in South Philly, or in Brooklyn, or in San Diego, wherever African people are. They have the same policy that they carry out in any war-torn community that's under attack of colonialism, where that community is starved of resources, where everybody in the community is paying, you know, taxes on what we make when we work, paying taxes on the products that we buy, paying taxes on every damn thing. But those tax dollars, they go into the city budgets. They go into the coffers of the United States government to pretty much finance all of its arms of oppression. So I think earlier we were talking about the George Floyd bill. And I took the liberty of pulling up the George Floyd bill, HR 7120, George Floyd Justice is in Policing Act of 2020. And these bills are filled with a lot of law jargon. They're structured perfectly, you know, and a lot of times African people, when we're protesting and organizing the streets, some of our people are calling for legislation to be passed to change what's happening to our people, so that our people won't be terrorized when we go out there in the streets anymore. You know, and there's been all types of bills that's passed. One of the most famous ones, I think, is this separate but equal case. I think with I think it was Thurgood Marshall or something like that. But the point being is that, you know, there was a case where separate but equal wasn't going to be, you know, tolerated in America. And that case happened, you know, almost
Brown versus Board, yeah.
Yeah, Brown versus Ferguson, right? Plessy versus Ferguson.
No, well, you said not tolerated, right? Brown versus Board. You're talking
Brown
about
versus the Board of Education.
Yeah.
Right. So exactly. So that's the situation where you have, appreciate that, Professor Uhuru. So you have a law that they made supposed to fix a particular problem, but now in this day and age, that particular law doesn't hold any kind of weight, because you can walk in any kind of public school today and see that it's totally segregated. You know, and I draw on that particular case because it's speaking about a situation in time where Black people were organizing and doing all this work to change the conditions of African people in America. And everyone rejoiced. People were so happy when that bill got passed, and they thought it was going to make some kind of change. With this George Floyd bill, you know, there's a generation of people who were organizing in the streets, protesting every single day last year during a pandemic, and still took to the streets to try to make some kind of change happen. And now we see another, you know, a document being produced that's supposed to change our conditions. But what we're clear about is that power doesn't concede to nothing but a demand, a clear demand that has organization behind it. Because nothing changes without organization, folks. That's one thing our people need to understand. People talk about marches and protesting, and yes, we understand we're not going to be protesting and marching to no end. We want to have an end game in place. But when we go out there to protest and mark and organize, organizing should be the main thing that's happening. Contact should be made. Revolutionary propaganda should be disseminated. Contact should be taken, and people should be contacted to come into revolutionary organization. We come into these meetings, we come into these shows every week to talk about different topics and cases. And there's so many things going on around us just for us to function throughout the day, we have what I like to call colonial obligations. You know, we have to pay our bills. We got to make sure everything is correct on an up and up, so that we're not put out of our homes, that we don't lose our way to finance ourselves and support ourselves. And at the same time, every single day, we have to be aware about how we conduct ourselves when we're engaged by the police. We have to be sharp on how we conduct ourselves in these schools, in every single facet of our lives, even to the point where our adults have to talk to our young people, have to teach them how to be able to deal with the police, because that is the part of the state that actually touches and reaches our community. That's the part of the state that's peer to peer. We see face to face. The people that are producing the George Floyd bill, we might not see every single day, especially in a particular region, but we're trying to figure out what needs to be done so that we can get justice for Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and Ronald Greene. What can be done so that we don't have just another hashtag, and we don't have no say in these budgets, anything that's coming up. But what we're facing is a colonial mindset, our people. What we're facing is a situation where believing that there's some kind of place in this colonial system for us. And the places that are made for us, again, is in support of the state in itself. You look at Breonna Taylor's case again. I believe the DA was a black DA, Attorney General Cameron. You have Benjamin Crump that's always on the scene when African is killed and it's time for this case to go to court. You're seeing the same actors and players over and over, and sometimes they sound really militant, and they may say things like defund the police. They may say things like, we're gonna apply pressure to the police to try to get somebody fired. But the problem isn't just one bad cop. The problem is the entire state apparatus. And it's not a personal thing when we're talking about police. You know, there's friends and family members that we have that may very well be police, that may be in the military. But we have to be clear and understand that when you engage in those particular occupations, you're pretty much working for the state. And so there's no illusion as to the roles of these particular entities when we engage them. So again, there's a lot of different points that I hit on, and I wanted us all to be clear about the identity or the character of the state, and how we got to see ourselves in this world. The colonizer, his main objective is to make sure that colonized people are working for their interests and not the interests of themselves. And if we're gonna get justice for Breonna Taylor, for George Floyd, and Ronald Greene, what really needs to happen is that we have to join an organization. We have to ditch the colonial mindset. We have to get ourselves the Uhuru mindset. Uhuru.
There it is. Uhuru. Until so hold on. You messing me up. All right, there we go. Hey, Uhuru, I want to appreciate everybody for tuning in for another hour of Black Power. And until next time, stay in the Uhuru state of mind. Uhuru.
This is Uhuru Mindset. This is our program. And we appreciate everyone for tuning in and, joining this discussion. We're going to continue to have these discussions. We're going to continue to engage with the community and create Uhuru mindsets wherever you are. So continue to tune into our program. Uhuru.